Hey, what's going on? FFBE Global Facebook group, and hello to everybody who sees this video on YouTube as well. Welcome to this week's episode of Ask an Old Mog, where we try and take some questions from the global Facebook group and answer them in a visual way to try and make some sense of this sometimes complicated game. Try and teach you a little bit about like mechanics and how things work, so you can figure out how to kind of do things your own way. Usually we try and take those questions from Facebook. Sometimes we can take comments from YouTube and turn them into questions, and this is an example of that this week. So last week we had a question that came up on a video about chainers versus finishers, and this one is like about chaining as well, but it's a special emphasis on chain families, in particular how they interact with limit bursts. So let's take a look at that together. Our question came from Ron. Something like this: can you tell us how to find out what family a limit burst belongs to and why it's not shown like with other abilities? So my answer to this one is we're going to have to do a little bit of math and some apples to oranges comparisons, but it's really pretty easy to find out. And I'm also going to put a link in the description, just like I did in response to your comment, Ron, that you can check out the chaining page on the wiki, in particular the chain families page, for really a lot more details about like how the chain families work, how they're different, how the frames line up and things like that. Some really good examples of different families and units that have those skills. The wiki's full of lots and lots of information, but I'm going to give you some basics that are going to help you try and figure this out. All right. So a little bit of information here before we get into it. All abilities in the game have frame data built in that determines how many hits that ability has, how often those hits land, and using skills that have the same data together results in you building up a chain. So skills and abilities that are in your kit are often going to have a symbol next to them that tells you what chain family the skills belong to. Some really good examples of that are Absolute Mirror of Equity, Bolting Strike, Chaos Wave Awakened, etc. I'm going to show you some examples of that now. So we're going to get into my units. And we're going to look at that. Now, like I said, a lot of these skills have it built in. We're going to look at their information here. So right here, it says like AMOE, Absolute Mirror of Equity on Sonic Octo Strike Blade, or Multi-Trigger, Bolting Strike. If we scroll over to somebody with magic, Pouse has Waterga, which is Chaos Wave Awakened. So you can see like how that's going to work. Now, if we look at some skills for these units that have limit bursts that do chain, you'll notice that it does not include that in the skill. So we don't see Absolute Mirror of Equity here, or anything like that. However, all the units that are in this party have limit bursts that do chain with specific families. So Reagan, for example, his limit burst and super limit burst, this Reagan right here, Reagan Dark Lineage, chains with Absolute Mirror of Equity. So Absolute Mirror of Equity has 8 hits in the frame data, and if it's a times 3, it's 24, because 8 times 3 is 24. And if we look at his SLB, right, lo and behold, 24 hits right there. So because it's 24 hits, we can pretty safely assume that it is going to be Absolute Mirror of Equity. Reagan kind of has a long-standing history with Absolute Mirror of Equity, so it's probably going to be that. However, if you look down below at Chaos Wave Awakened, you can see that that is also 8 hits, and that equals 24 as well if you multiply it by 3. But Reagan doesn't really have any history with casting Chaos Wave Awakened spells, so, you know, try them both out. It's either going to be Absolute Mirror of Equity or Chaos Wave Awakened. In Reagan's case, it's Absolute Mirror of Equity. Okay, let's look at another one, Bolting Strike. You know, if we look at Bolting Strike, this is skill Dawn's Edge. It's 9 hits, right? 9 times 3 is 27, and lo and behold, Mirror of Revolution has 27 hits. So Reagan's SLB, Reagan the Returns SLB, is Bolting Strike because it's 9 hits times 3, 27. So it'll chain with anybody who has Bolting Strike times 3, with a few exceptions. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. But that's kind of how you can kind of see what's going on. Now, let's compare another one. So Mastermind Zahn, if we look at his ability, the clock's ticking. it tells you it is 30 hits, right? All enemies, 30 hits. Now, anything with 30 hits in it is Extreme Nova. The best way to demonstrate this is just to equip him with an ability that has Extreme Nova. Let's like give him Eye of the Dragon. Okay, and if we look at it, it gives him this skill Claw the Dragon, which chains Extreme Nova, or EN. That's 30 hits. So 30 hits, Extreme Nova, and that will chain together very nicely. The last one I want to show you is Paus. Her both Guardian's Gleam and Reflection, they chain with Chaos Wave Awakened. Chaos Wave Awakened is 8 hits. 8 times 3 is 24. Or in Paus's case, it's times 4. 8 times 4 is 32 hits. So that's kind of neat, you know. So her LB is just times 4 Chaos Wave Awakened, and so is her SLB, right? They're both the same. They just have different modifiers, do more damage. Pretty cool. So doing some math, you can kind of see like what chain family things belong to. By the time you kind of play with this notion a little bit, you'll kind of get the hang of like what units have what, and you kind of like see like, okay, 9 hits or 27 hits, that's probably Bolting Strike times 3. 30 hits, Extreme Nova, and so forth. You kind of start to put that together. So there you have it. However, right, we wouldn't just stop there. So don't forget to factor into that math that sometimes units have skills that have multiple parts, and so sometimes you have to do a little bit of extra math, but usually not too much. Usually just adding +1, or in the case of Olivera, times 4. So here's what I mean. Samurai Shizuru, her shifted limit burst, it is called Dual Blade Phantom Shadow. It is 29 hits and then 1 extra hit. Now 29 plus 1 is 30, so we know that's Extreme Nova. So if you look at it here, 29 hits and 1 hit, 29 and 1 is 30. Hers also happens to give her tag team chaining, right? So if you look at Dual Blade Phantom Shadow, it's included in the list of abilities that get tag team chaining for her after you use it. In fact, it gives it to it immediately, making this a very nice ability to quickly build up a chain. And that +1 hit is basically a backloaded massive hit at the end of the big chain. So that's why it's broken down into 2 parts. It's just, backloaded. So that's pretty cool. Let's look at Olivera. Next, Olivera's limit burst, Violin Cadenza. It's 8 hits of 1 modifier, 8 hits of the same modifier twice, right? 8 hits of another modifier, and then 8 hits of 1 more modifier. So it's really Chaos Wave Awakened times 4, so that's 32 hits, but each section is broken down into different modifiers. So that would technically chain with Paus and her limit burst, but hers is light element and his is dark element. So we get a little bit of clashing there. They wouldn't totally, do their thing. They would chain, but they wouldn't element chain. So kind of awkward, but the hits line up, right? So even though it's 8 hits, 8 hits, 8 hits, 8 hits, it's 4 times Chaos Wave Awakened. Pretty cool. Another example, Tidebringer Kaito, Crestblade Devastation. This is his base form limit burst. It's 26 hits plus 1 hit at the end. So 26 plus 1 is 27. And we know that 27 hits is Bolting Strike. So Tidebringer Kaito's limit burst is Bolting Strike times 3 for all enemies, mind you, which is pretty cool, and more effective against machines. So that's kind of cool. But we're not going to stop there either. So we know we have to do a little bit of math to try and figure this out sometimes. What about New Guardian Titus? I don't know, whatever. His limit burst, right? This should be quick. It is 27 hits, right? So 27 hits should be Bolting Strike, right? Let's take him into the training dummy and find out what happens here. So if you've never seen the training dummy before, we're going to go ahead and go home, and then we're going to click on the Vortex. Not Dark Visions. I'm sorry, my mistake. We're going to click on it looks like the Vortex, doesn't it? In the Vortex, we're going to click on Exchange. Cool. Click on Town menu and Tower of Wind. If you've never been to the Tower of Wind, you just have to walk there. It's not that hard to get there. And then here's the little training dummy. And we're going to try this out. Okay. So, Wavebringer Kaito, we said, is 27 hits, right? So, Crestblade Devastation, 26 plus 1, 27. New Guardian Tidus, this should be quick. 27 hits, right? So, 27 hits and 27 hits should chain together, right? Let's try it. They don't chain. So I don't know if you caught that. It happened really quick. Kaito went first and pretty much started chaining immediately. And then Tidus did a little bit, and there were a couple hits that lined up, but they didn't quite chain perfectly, and as a result, we did very, very little damage. The catch to that is that some Neovision's units, okay, technically chain with another family, but have a delay to their limit burst, and Tidus is a prime example of that. Another one that's a really good example of that is, I believe Sky Pirate Balthier, and there are a handful of other units that have a slight delay in their chain, and it's super, super annoying. You just kind of have to practice with these units. It is technically Bolting Strike, so if we just guard here, we'll get our limit burst back, and we can try and chain it again. We'll see if we can do better than 7-hit chain, right? So Kaito and Tidus. We're going to send Tidus first, and then we're going to send Kaito a little bit later. Wait for it, and... So that wasn't perfect, but we did better, right? We did better than 7 hits, and as a result, we did quite a bit more damage. So not perfect. You just kind of have to practice that timing. You know, if we reload and try again, we'll wait for it, and I messed that up anyway. You know, just gotta practice. The timing's really goofy. That's why no one likes these units, because they have really goofy timings. But you know, should be getting better soon. Anyways, go practice on the training dummy. That poor thing's not gonna know what it had coming. Yeah, that's it. So the last thing I wanted to talk about in this video is that is why I do this. So I'm gonna put up a message that I got, or it wasn't specifically aimed at me, but it was from a player in the Facebook group, Chris, who for several reasons was getting kind of frustrated about a week or so ago, and was like basically saying, you know, I'm gonna take a step back from the game, and I want to pop up on screen, you know, this message that we got from Chris today. And Chris, I'm sorry if I'm calling you out, but like this is a prime example of why what I'm doing matters to me, and I just want to share it with everybody here. So Chris says, "Happy Easter, guys. I was mad at my skills all the time in this game, and I stopped it for a couple of days. I had some time to watch some guides for the beginners, read the wiki about colors of damage, resistances, how to defend, what skills of the meta units do, buffs, debuffs, all of that, and now I feel more safe at playing it. I needed that because I was playing without rewarding my efforts. So many thanks to Gert84 on YouTube. Your guides are pretty awesome. Subbed." I really, really appreciate that. And I'm not trying to like toot my own horn here, but this kind of comment, right? This kind of thing is exactly why I want to do these videos. Because if you just get into the game and you learn how to use one unit, or you just like, you know, follow a guide, follow a strategy without understanding what you're doing in this game, then it's really easy to get very discouraged because you can't do more than 2% damage on a boss with the same strategy that worked really, really well on a different boss. So this kind of stuff, you know, taking the moment to learn why something works, and how to do it, and how to like take the information from that and apply it to your own video, or not even a video, your own play style, your own, you know, efforts at trying to play the game, is what this channel is ultimately all about. Like I can show a strategy for a clear, and that might be helpful because maybe somebody can copy it, but like that's why I spend so much time talking about every turn that I take. And so sometimes the videos are quite long as a result of that. But like I care a lot about people learning how to play, using the information that's available, whether we're talking about the wiki, whether we're talking about just like stuff that's rattling around in my brain, conversations that I have with people, people like Sinzar, people like Flip Method, people who like help me to understand what's going on in the game, and then I try to share it with you guys sometimes. That's what these are all about. And you know, thanks so much, Chris, for letting me know, because, like, you know, sometimes I need that. Sometimes I need a little pick me up to know that something that I did mattered to you, and it really made my day this morning when you sent us that message. So I really appreciate it. And if this has been helpful to you in any way, anybody out there, you know, let me know. Sometimes us guys that are making these videos, we need to know that what we're doing is for a worthwhile cause. And you know, every time somebody says, "Hey, I got rank 1 because of this," or "Hey, thanks for making this make sense," or, you know, "Oh, I didn't realize that, now I do." And, you know, in your case, Chris, you know, you showed a picture of your clear of the Rain and Fina crowns from last week, and you were able to do quite a bunch of damage just by kind of, like, you know, picking up some stuff, and good on you, my dude. Keep going. The game's just going to get better from here, but the game is, you know, very big. This is so much bigger of a game than just using Carton's Magnus, and that's all I'm going to say about that. So if you've got a question that you want to see in next week's video, you know, drop a comment on Facebook, drop a comment on YouTube, and we will do our best to try and answer it and talk about it. You know, some questions are, they're not necessarily better than others, but some questions are better to, like, visually go over than others. Some other questions are just, like, really, you know, really quickly answerable. Things like, you know, does this stack? You know, no, it doesn't. It probably doesn't stack. Some things do, but very, very often they don't if they provide the same benefit. So there's your free tidbit for the day. If they provide different benefits, they usually do. But yeah, drop a comment. That way I can know you've got a question about something and I can try and talk about it. That's all I got for right now. So until then, you guys be good to each other. Take care. And we'll see you in the game. All right.